My name is Karen Garcia, and I've always believed that Seattle's endless drizzle mirrors the quiet undercurrents of a marriage. Steady, nourishing, but sometimes so gray it blurs the edges of what you thought you knew. Mark and I had been married for 8 years when the first crack appeared, not in our home overlooking Lake Union, but in the soft glow of my phone screen late one Tuesday night in October. Mark was out cold beside me. His snores a familiar rumble after a long day wrangling code at his tech firm in Bellevue. I was scrolling through emails, half asleep, when a message popped up from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey Ken, it's Jake. We need to talk. Alone. Can we grab coffee tomorrow? Just you and me. There's something I can't say over group chats." Jake Harlan, Mark's oldest friend from their University of Washington days. The guy who'd crashed on our couch more times than I could count during his messy divorce 2 years back. He lived across the Sound in Tacoma now, working odd jobs after losing his steady gig at a shipping company down by the Puyallup River. Jake was the charmer in our circle, the one with the easy laugh, the stories about hiking the Olympic Peninsula that made you feel like you'd been there, boots muddy and heart full. Mark trusted him like a brother, which is why my stomach twisted as I read those words again. Alone. It wasn't the word itself. It was the weight behind it, like he'd been holding it in for months. I should have deleted it, blocked the number. But curiosity, that sneaky Seattle fog, crept in. I typed back before I could think. "What's this about, Jake? Mark's birthday is coming up, surprise." It was light, deflecting, the way I'd always handled his lingering hugs at barbecues, or the way his eyes would hold mine a beat too long over craft beers at Pike Place. His reply came in seconds. "It's not about Mark. It's about us. The way you've been looking at me lately. See it, Ken. Feel it too. Let's just spend some time. No pressure. But I need to know if I'm imagining this." My heart slammed against my ribs. Looking at him, I'd replayed every backyard grill out at our place in Capitol Hill, every Seahawks watch party where he'd tease me about my unwavering loyalty to the Mariners. Had I leaned in too close during that story about his solo backpacking trip through the Cascades? Laughed too hard at his jokes while Mark nursed a headache in the den? Well, it was nothing. But his words wormed in, planting doubt like rain seeping into cracked pavement. I stared at the screen, Mark's arm heavy across my waist, and typed, "You're not imagining it. But we can't. Meet me at that little spot by the locks. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. We'll talk. Promise it'll stay between us." I hit send and felt a rush, electric and wrong, like stealing a sip of forbidden whiskey from my dad's old cabinet back in my Boise days. Super excited. God, if he only knew how my own pulse raced as I imagined his face lighting up. It was the thrill of being seen, truly seen, in a marriage where Mark and I had settled into the comfortable rhythm of shared Netflix queues and grocery lists pinned to the fridge. Not boredom exactly, just the quiet erosion of spark after years of building a life together. Jake's message had ignited something dormant, a flicker of the reckless girl who'd once dreamed of writing novels in a Rainier Beach cafe instead of managing marketing for a sustainable coffee roaster in Fremont. The next morning I slipped out early, blaming a client brunch to Mark over his black coffee. He kissed my forehead, oblivious, muttering about a deadline crunch on their joint app project, something about optimizing delivery routes for Amazon warehouses in Kent. Jake was already at the Ballard Locks when I arrived, leaning against the railing with a paper cup steaming in his hand, the salmon ladder churning water below like a mechanical heartbeat. Tacoma suited him, I thought. Rougher edges, salt air toughening that boyish grin. He turned as I approached, and his eyes, that piercing green like the evergreens lining I-5, locked on mine. No hello. Just a nod toward the bench overlooking the ship canal. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said, voice low, the hum of tourists and gulls masking us. Neither was I. I sat, close enough to catch the faint scent of his soap, pine and something Garcia, like cedar from the forests he'd hiked. "What is this, Jake? Really?" He exhaled, running a hand through his dark hair, still thick despite turning 35 last spring. "It's you, Ken. Ever since that night at your place last summer. The one where Mark passed out early and we stayed up talking on the deck till dawn. You get me? You see the mess I am, the guy who blew up his marriage over stupid pride, who can't hold a job without screwing it up. Mark. He loves me, sure, but he fixes things. You listen. You make me feel like I could be more. His words hit like a Pacific squall, sudden, soaking. That night, I'd forgotten. No, I'd replayed it in quiet moments, the way we'd bonded over lost dreams. His for engineering bridges across the Sound, mine for penning stories that captured the ache of the Pacific Northwest soul. Mark had been buried in work, distant even then. His promotions pulling him into late nights at the office overlooking Elliott Bay. Jake's vulnerability cracked me open. It's not fair, I whispered. To Mark. To us. But it is, he pressed, leaning closer, his knee brushing mine. A spark, innocent yet charged. Tell me you don't feel it. That pull. Like we're two ships finally docking after years adrift. I should have stood, walked away. Instead I met his gaze. I do. God help me, I do. But it's dangerous, Jake. We can't. We won't, he cut in too quick. His hand hovering near mine before pulling back. Just this. Fluffy. No one knows. It'll be our secret harbor. Our secret harbor. The phrase lodged in my chest, warm and treacherous. I nodded, and that's when his face split into that grin. The one that made his eyes crinkle like he'd just spotted a bald eagle soaring over Discovery Park. Super excited didn't cover it. He looked alive, reborn, as if I'd handed him a map out of his Tacoma fog. We talked for hours that day about everything and nothing. His ex's new life in Spokane, my buried manuscript gathering dust in a drawer, the way Seattle's ferries cut through the Sound like promises unkept. No touches, no confessions of fire. Just words, weaving a thread between us finer than fog, stronger than I realized. It started innocently enough. Texts at odd hours. Saw a heron by the Duwamish today. Reminded me of that story you told. I'd reply from my desk at the roastery. Heart skipping as I hid my phone during team meetings. We'd meet sporadically. Never the same spot twice. A trail in Discovery Park one drizzly afternoon, where he confessed the gnawing emptiness after his divorce, how he'd wake in his cramped apartment overlooking the Thea Foss waterway, staring at the ceiling beams scarred from old floods. I'd share my own shadows. The miscarriage 2 years back, the one Mark and I never spoke of anymore, buried under layers of "we're fine" and forced smiles at family gatherings in Everett. You deserve to grieve, he'd say. His voice a bomb over the phone during a late-night call while Mark slept off a flu. Not just nod and move on. Let it out, Ken. With me. And I did. Piece by jagged piece. It was emotional quicksand, each confession pulling me deeper. His responses a lifeline that felt like love. Psychological, they call it now, in those self-help podcasts I binged in secret. An affair of the mind, where vulnerability becomes intimacy. Boundaries blur without a single line crossed. But oh, the thrill. The way his messages lit up my screen like bioluminescent waves off Alki Beach. The suspense of wondering if Mark would notice the extra glow on my face. The way I'd linger in the shower, replaying Jake's laugh. Mark didn't notice at first. He was too wrapped up in the app launch. His days bleeding into nights at co-working spaces in South Lake Union. You're glowing, babe, he'd say one evening over takeout from Ivor's. But it was casual, like complimenting a new scarf. Guilt gnawed at me then, sharp as the chill off Lake Washington during our weekend jogs. I loved Mark. His steady hands fixing the leaky faucet in our kitchen. His quiet pride when he surprised me with tickets to a concert at the Paramount. But Jake. He was the storm, stirring waters I'd long let still. The crime crept in slowly, like the tide over tide flats at low tide in West Seattle. It was mid-November when Jake suggested we meet at a dive bar in Georgetown, away from the hipster crowds of Ballard. Need to clear my head, he texted. Something big. I arrived to find him hunched over a whiskey neat. His usual easy posture slumped. The bar smelled of stale hops and regret. Neon signs buzzing Rusty's Roadhouse above the door. What's wrong? I slid into the booth, our knees touching under the scarred table. Accidental, always accidental. He glanced around, voice dropping. Mark's company. That app's not just routes. There's a glitch. I'm in on the beta testing, freelance from Tacoma. But I found something. They're skimming off the top, funneling cash to offshore accounts in the Caymans. Mark's boss, that sleaze Derek from the Bellevue office, he's neck deep. I think they know I know. My blood ran cold. Mark idolized Derek, had mentored under him since joining the firm fresh out of UW. You have to tell him, I urged, pulse thundering. This could ruin everything. Jake's eyes darkened, that green turning stormy. And drag Mark down. He's my brother, Ken. But if I go public, they could pin it on me. I've got priors. Nothing big, just that bar fight in Puyallup years back, but it sticks. He reached across, his fingers grazing my wrist for the first time, a plea more than touch. You're the only one I trust. Help me figure this out. Us against the world. The word bound us tighter, a knot of shared secrets. From then on, our talks shifted. Late-night strategy sessions disguised as emotional check-ins. I'd pore over Jake's blurry screenshots of ledgers on my laptop in the den, Mark dozing upstairs, the Space Needle's lights twinkling through our window like distant warnings. Suspense coiled in my gut. What if Derek found out? What if Jake's digging triggered an audit, pulling Mark into the crossfire? I'd lie awake, imagining handcuffs glinting under fluorescent lights at the King County Courthouse, Jake's face pale in an orange jumpsuit, Mark's trust shattered like glass from a ferry deck. But woven through the fear was the pull, the way Jake's voice cracked when he admitted his own role, a small kickback he'd taken last year to pay rent, rationalized as survival in this grind. You're not a criminal, I'd whisper back, hating how I believed it, how I excused him because his pain mirrored my own buried hurts. It was psychological alchemy. His flaws made mine feel forgivable. We'd spin hypotheticals till dawn. Anonymous tips to the FBI's Seattle field office, whistleblower protections under the state's fraud statutes. Each plan deepened our bond, a clandestine alliance born of whispers and whats. Guilt festered, though, emotional rot setting in. Christmas approached, our annual Garcia Harlan bash at the old family cabin in Snoqualmie Pass. Mark's idea to rekindle the crew. Jake arrived with a bottle of Pinot from Columbia Crest Vineyards. His smile for me a secret code amid the pine-scented chaos. As we strung lights on snow-dusted evergreens, his hand brushed mine passing an ornament, and I flinched, not from revulsion but the spark that leaped unbidden. Mark caught it, his brow furrowing over eggnog. You okay, Ken? Seemed distracted. Just the drive, I lied, forcing a laugh. But that night, as snow blanketed the Cascades, Jake cornered me by the wood stove. I can't stop thinking about you, he murmured, flames dancing in his eyes. This, us, it's the only real thing in my life. I froze, the air thick with cinnamon and unspoken betrayal. Stop, please. But my voice wavered and he stepped closer, breath mingling with mine. No kiss, just the gravity of nearness, the psychological vertigo of almost. We have to end this, I said, pulling back, before it destroys everything. His face crumpled, excitement from our last meet replaced by raw hurt. You don't mean that. We're in too deep. The word echoed as I fled to the porch, stars piercing the cloudy veil overhead. Mark found me there, wrapping his coat around my shoulders. Talk to me, he said softly, his hand warm on my arm, the same hand that had held mine through hospital vigils and job losses. Tears came then, hot and unbidden, not for Jake, but for the woman I'd become, a shadow self, trading fidelity for fleeting validation. The unraveling accelerated after New Year's. Jake's texts turned frantic. Derek's asking questions. Found my login traces. Ken, I need you. I met him one last time at a windswept overlook in Golden Gardens Park, waves crashing against the shore like accusations. Turn yourself in, I pleaded, wind whipping my hair. With me. We'll go to Mark together. He laughed bitterly, eyes red-rimmed. And watch him hate us both. This is bigger than us now. But it wasn't. The crime he'd uncovered, or half-confessed to committing, had tendrils reaching into our life. That week, Mark came home ashen, papers clutched from a meeting at the Bellevue HQ. "Audit," he said, sinking onto the couch. "Derek's out. Something about irregularities in the routing funds. They think it's an inside job." My world tilted. It had to be. I confronted him via text. "Did you take more? Tell me now." Silence then. "For us. To start over. Portland maybe. You and me. Portland." The betrayal landed like a punch. Not just infidelity of the heart, but a calculated theft, using our us as cover. Rage boiled, hot as lava flows from Mount St. Helens. I drove to Tacoma that night, unannounced, pounding on his apartment door overlooking the rusting hulls of old freighters. He opened, disheveled, surprise melting into that damn grin. "Ken, keys," I demanded, voice steel. "The ledger files. Everything. Or I go to the cops myself." His excitement from our early days. Replaced by desperation, eyes pleading as he backed away. "You wouldn't. We're connected. Soul deep." "Souls don't steal," I snapped, snatching his laptop from the cluttered table. "You used me, Jake. My words, my pain, to justify this. Mark could lose everything. His job, his faith in people. In you. In me." He lunged, not violently, but to grab my arm, a plea. "I love you, Ken. That's why. Love doesn't hide in shadows." I yanked free, bolting down the stairs, heart shattering with each step. The drive back over the Narrows Bridge was a blur, rain lashing the windshield like judgment. I came clean to Mark the next dawn, over coffee in our kitchen, the Olympics hazy in the distance. Words tumbled, the messages, the meets, the emotional tether that had snared me. No details of touches because there were none, but the truth of the heartache, the psychological betrayal laid bare. He listened, face a mask, then pulled me close. "I knew something was off," he admitted. "But I trusted you. Us. I'm so sorry," I sobbed, the weight lifting even as it crushed. We turned the files over anonymously, through a tip line at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Seattle. Derek was indicted weeks later. Wire fraud, money laundering, a trail leading to shell companies mimicking the fog-shrouded inlets of the San Juans. Jake. He vanished, a ghost text arriving one night. "Forgive me. I was drowning." No arrest, but whispers in Tacoma circles said he'd skipped to Reno, chasing odd jobs and old regrets. Months healed us slowly. Mark and I started therapy in a cozy office near Green Lake, unpacking the silences we'd let grow. I dusted off that manuscript, words flowing like the ship canal after a storm. Stories of women navigating tempests of the soul. Jake's shadow lingers, a cautionary echo in quiet moments, reminding me how whispers can erode foundations stronger than the basalt cliffs of the Sound. Looking back, my response that first night, the one that lit him up like a flare, wasn't invitation but ignition. A spark in dry tinder, fanned by neglect and need into a blaze of secrets and schemes. Infidelity isn't always flesh. Sometimes it's the slow poison of shared silences, the suspense of what-ifs that bind tighter than vows. In the end, I chose the harbor I knew. Mark's hand in mine, Seattle's rain washing clean. But the thrill, the emotional high-wire act. It taught me that the most dangerous affairs are the ones waged in the mind, where no one sees the fall until it's too late.